Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to the program today on mantra meditation with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have close to 20 members on Zoom and more than 50 members in our Facebook community. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness today.
Oh, thanks a lot, JM. Good to be back. Great to see all of you. Thanks for taking your time and giving your attention. It's very meaningful. And I look forward today to examining, again, consciousness and the ways that we can become more aware of who we are and therefore aligned with our original conscious source. In the practice of yoga, yoga means huge or connection. We are whole when we're connected with the complete whole. We're parts of that whole, and by consciousness, we become separated. So really, adjustment of consciousness is the ultimate purpose of yoga, really philosophy, as well as searching for something similar. Otherwise, how practical is it to merely speculate? There has to be some experience where we feel ourselves whole and we experience and see directly for ourselves reality, which is to be perceived. There's a difference between time and a clock, and there's a difference between philosophizing about the truth and experiencing it directly for oneself, which is really the need of every living being, to feel that wholeness by seeing actually who we are directly. The way the yoga scriptures describe it is we're not really aware of ourselves, we're mostly aware of our life situation and what's going on around us, but very rarely do become aware of our awareness, which is something that is directly experience. It's cognition in the moment. We're always there. We always have cognition, but oftentimes we offload our attention into distractions that take us away from that awareness. So how easy is it to come back into awareness of ourself, and then as a next step to become aware that we're part of a whole, and to become aware of source, our original conscious source, and how we are connected to that. Just as leaves are connected to a tree. And when you water the root of the tree, then all the leaves and the branches become automatically satisfied. This is a philosophy describing our existential situation given by a great philosopher and saint named Chaitanya. 500 years ago, he was a monk. He walked village to village barefoot and taught the process of mantra meditation, which we'll be going into today. And he also was a renowned philosopher. And the philosophy I'm just espousing now is called Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, which means that we're simultaneously one with the whole and different at the same time. So how's that possible? Well, you could say if you look at a sun ray that's coming through your window right now, I see some of you with your cameras on, there's a little sunshine coming in. And okay, the sun's there. You might point to it and say, oh, the sun is there on my desk. Well, is it the whole sun or is it part of the sun? It's both. It's the sun ray. Yes, that's the sun. That's not incorrect to say the sun is on my desk or is on my arm right now. But if the sun globe or the whole sun was in your room right now, you would be vaporized. Or if it was even a few inches closer, probably. It's simultaneously one and different. So we as conscious parts of the conscious whole are simultaneously one and different from that original conscious source. And in the process of meditation, interesting word, meditation, in the etymological dictionary, which I'm looking at right now. It's related to the word medicine, all coming from a root word med, from Proto-Indo-European, which means to take appropriate measures, med. And the process of, there you have it. Just like magic, it shows up. To take appropriate measures, meditation. And you see there in the middle, the Proto-Indo-European root of the word med, to take appropriate measures. So how does one take appropriate measures? Well, there are many ways, but this is also what's described by the word yoga. Again, from the root word yuj from Sanskrit, which means to reconnect. Reconnect what? Our consciousness. I'm never actually disconnected, as I'm part of the whole. How can I be disconnected? I can be disconnected by consciousness. And very interestingly to me, we always have recourse. I woke up on Wednesday morning thinking about this concept, because oftentimes there are frustrating situations in the world and think, what do I do now? I mean, what's going to happen next? Has anybody ever felt like that? Like there's I mean, anything can happen, right? In our personal lives, in the national scene, in the international scene, in the cosmic world, who knows, a meteor could come hurtling towards us at any time. So what do you do about that as a conscious living entity? I mean, there are a number of responses. I remember as a child on television that the cliche was that if there was ever any problem, you'd end up in the bar. And you'd see, like, how do you say, that something happened? You just go to the bar and drink. I mean, that's one response. But there are probably more practical responses to what's happening around us in our life situation. And one of them is to observe our own consciousness and take recourse. Recourse means that I can redirect my consciousness ultimately in another way. I can adjust my philosophy. I can also adjust my attitude. And by doing that, I find recourse, another course, a way to work around whatever anomalies I may be experiencing in this life. This is one of the major points made in the wisdom literatures throughout the world, from China to India to Europe. Great thinkers who look very deeply inside and observe the way we are in the world and how the world is confounding us in various ways. How do you deal with that? And ultimately, being equipoised, having a place inwardly to stand and to be able to observe that there are circumstances beyond my control. There are changes that are going on constantly, but feeling at the same time that I don't change. I am the same in all circumstances. This is a kind of steadiness that's achieved through introspection, through meditation, through taking the appropriate measures to clear the dross of ego and various unnecessary attachments that I have, so that I can actually taste the nectar of who I am. JM, let's see that verse. This is an ancient verse I'm going to show you from one of the Indian scriptures that was written thousands of years ago. And it's a very interesting invitation to all of us in meditation. It's sort of poetical. It was written originally in Sanskrit. I didn't include the Sanskrit here, but this is the translation. O sons and daughters of the sea of nectar, you were born of nectar. You were born to taste nectar, and you must not allow yourselves to be satisfied with anything but nectar. Awaken and search for this nectar. So this is parallel with the teachings on meditation, that there is a reservoir of nectar that is not just inside you, but that is you. Who are we? We are something that the wisdom literature of Bhagavad Gita describes in an adjective as ascharyavat, which means amazing. And any way you look at it, any way you look at yourself, that is your Atma, you are a conscious being who exists in all circumstances, who always has recourse or volition. In other words, you can always change your course at any time. You have that power to place your attention wherever you want to place your attention. That's your free will. And according to these wisdom literatures, you've always existed, you exist now in the present, and you always will exist. The changes that are going on around you are circumstantial, and they're occurring in a different energy that is not you. I'll try to be more specific about what I mean here. And that is that the energy that makes up, for instance, your mind is categorically different from you, your consciousness. You can have cognition of yourself, and you can also notice that your mind and even your buddhi, or your intelligence, your intellect, is separate from yourself. It's on a very subtle level. What to speak of your body? The body right now, you're sitting there in a body. You're not your body. The movements of your eyes are going on. In other words, some of you are blinking now. Yep, I'm watching it. You're blinking. This is going on mechanically. You are digesting. Some of you, if you had breakfast or whatever time zone you're in, whatever meal you had sometime in the last 6 hours, you're digesting. Your body is deciding where to put it. This is going on in a mechanical way. It's different from your cognitive self, who animates the body, who resides within the body. And you are more subtle, a more subtle energy. And it's not that you're some subtle material energy. According to the yoga teachings, actually, you are categorically different. It's an antimatter. Yes, there's matter. There's earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ahankara, or ego. These are all gross and subtle elements. However, beyond that is you, the Atma. And that energy is ascharyavat, amazing. No matter how long you look at yourself, your actual self, not your hand, not your head, not your mind, those are lower energies, and they can never be completely ascharyavat, or amazing to us. They can never hold our imagination and attention completely, because they are a grosser energy than we ourselves, the conscious living being. So when, through meditation, we're able to glimpse ourself, and how do you do that? I mean, you are a self, you are cognition itself. So how do you become aware of yourself? Well, that's in the definition. You are a unit of awareness. So awareness can become aware of itself. And when you do that, this is a preliminary step in the process of meditation. We've talked extensively in these classes about how the mind is a reservoir of churnings and changes that are very disturbing when we watch them, because if I identify with that, I think, oh no, this is happening, that's happening. And we've given the example of a little pot of water. If you put it outside on a full moon night, and then you tap the pot and the water ripples, you'll see the reflection of the moon in the pot to be moving. And then you'll think, oh, the moon is moving. No, you won't think that, but if in a perfect world, in the example, we might think, oh, moon is moving, if that's our perspective. However, the moon isn't moving, the water is moving. So similarly, our mind moves, and the mind is a reflective surface that's reflecting the outer world, so to speak. It's coming through our senses. That is, the sensory impulses coming through our various senses. Its repository is the mind, which is like a mirror also. described. It's also like a cloud. There are many descriptions of but that is a cloud that stores digital information. And then we are beyond the mind. We are beyond the mind, but we can become absorbed in the mind. Can you become absorbed in a screen somewhere? Is that possible? Anyone? Have you ever found yourself absorbed in a screen, meaning the screen of a smartphone or a television? Possible? To lose yourself in a television. It's down the rabbit hole, right? Your attention goes into the screen, and then someone comes by and say, hey, come on, let's go. And it's like, huh, where am I? And this is the way in which the yoga literatures describe we become absorbed in our own mind. We're looking at the screen of the mind. I'm fully absorbed there. And just as I'm watching television, I'm watching what's going on somewhere else. For instance, you might be watching let's say a soccer match, and you're very absorbed because you have a vested interest. Your team is playing, and somebody goes to kick a goal, and you notice your leg is kicking, your own leg. You're on the couch kicking. Or have you ever been in a dream when you kicked, you kicked, and so maybe even kicked somebody? It's like, what? What did you do? This is due to the fluctuations that are going on within the chitta, or the mind, which is a reflective surface. So as observers, we're the cognition. We are the unit of cognition within the body. We're observing the mind, and therefore we're reacting according to our identification with that film that's playing there, with the television of our mind that's going on. So through meditation, what we actually do is take a step back from that and become aware of our own awareness. And where's that awareness coming from? We are a unit of awareness. And again, I'll come back to this word in Sanskrit a few times today. It is ascharyavat. It is the most amazing thing that you can look at anywhere. And that is the nature of your own self. And that it is aware. Awareness is amazing. And it's the greatest show on the whole planet, anywhere. And what we're aware of is not as important as our awareness. So think of the way we invest ourselves in the things we're aware of, but actually the thing that's aware of those things is the thing that you should be aware of. And this is meditation, to take that view and see, okay, who is it that's extending him or herself outwardly and connecting to the screen of the mind, what's going on the screen of the mind. And when we have that awareness of our own awareness, then we start to taste nectar. Remember, let's look at that verse one more time. What is the nectar? I mean, nectar really means something that's so unbelievably tasty that you can't stop drinking it, right? Let's put it like that. It's so tasty you can't stop drinking. O sons and daughters of the sea of nectar, you were born of nectar, and you were born to taste nectar, and you must not allow yourselves to be satisfied with anything but nectar. Awaken and search for this nectar. So, O sons and daughters of the sea of nectar, you were born of nectar, which means, as described in the Vedas, what we are is, it's called Brahman. We are a non-material substance. And our real objective is actually to taste happiness or nectar. So the admonition here is, don't get distracted. Don't settle for something that's causing you a complete anxiety. This is called abhinibheshita. You can go back. Abhinibheshita means that although I'm born of nectar, although my very awareness itself is nectarian, I become diverted and I start investing my cognitive awareness into objects that are not worthy of my absorption. And we're all looking for an object that we can look at and we can become absorbed in, and that will give us pleasure or happiness. I'm just throwing that out as a theory. You can challenge it if you like, but let me put it again. We're all looking for that object that we can absorb ourselves in that will actually give us happiness. Have you ever seen a vase that really attracted your attention? And it's like, it's such a beautiful vase. Whoever made that vase is a genius. Shweka said yes. I put up a thumbs up. It could be anything. It could be any object in this world. It could be the form of another person, another body that we put up on the wall and say, oh, that's the perfect body. I mean, there's Greek sculptures of bodies and so forth, and paintings. And I go and I look in museums and so forth, and where is that object that will fill me up or I'll taste nectar? Well, according to the wisdom literatures, anything that I see in this world actually will not fully satisfy my sense for, or my thirst for tasting nectar. But when I see myself, the observer, and I understand the nature of myself, and it's not so much understanding, but it's directly experiencing the nectar, the nature of myself. And that just means to be aware of my own awareness. Then I begin to taste nectar. I begin to understand my potentiality, my potential. And from there, it deepens, because what's the next steps are that, okay, that one drop of the ocean is nectarian. What about the ocean itself, which is my origin that I come from? That's described in the poem as the ocean of nectar from which I'm a part, of which I'm a part. So this this means something profound, and that is that what we're actually looking for is already there. It's something we already are. And what we are is more important than what we have. Those things that we have around us, they only have meaning because we've invested ourselves in them. And that includes everything in our life situation. They're meaningful because we've invested our consciousness in them. And when we no longer invest our consciousness in them, they no longer have meaning. So what about the consciousness itself? That's where the nectar is. And this is meditation. So there's a means for going into that state of absorption. And I'll make another proposal given to me a few years ago by one of my colleagues that I find extremely helpful in the process of meditation and in life itself, or any other learning or discipline that one's embarking upon. And that is that advancement takes place at the stage of absorption. For instance, when you're learning a skill, it's not until you're able to actually discipline yourself to get in that zone where you're actually absorbed in the material. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just say if you're studying for something like an SAT, and how do you actually take it in? When do you learn it? When you get into the position of absorption, you're actually in a kind of a trance in that material. Or when does your best writing or work take place? When you're able to tune everything else out and be fully focused on one point, the material that you're looking at. There's a kind of nectar in that too, isn't there? Do you find that? And this is something that's mentioned in the wisdom literatures as well, is the consciousness experiences happiness and distress because of the way, or the mind, I should say, is in more illuminated states when it is expanded. And when we're in focus, when we're in absorption, the mind expands and we feel a kind of expansiveness. I've given this example previously that if you put a fish in a tiny bowl and it's swimming around vigorously, the water will be splashing out and you'll notice the turbulence. If you put that same fish in a large lake, you won't notice the turbulence at all because the lake is so expansive. So when our consciousness expands due to absorption in a particular topic, then we don't feel oppressed by the concentrated thoughts or the churnings of our mind as much. So absorption in any topic will create that kind of temporary relief of the pressures that we feel from a contracted mind. However, unless the object permanently expands our consciousness or progressively, incrementally expands our consciousness, it will come back to the same position it was in before, even if we're absorbed in a particular object. But the proposal here given by the ancient texts on meditation is if you choose an object of a meditation and absorption that is beyond the material stratum, that is from a higher position, then by that absorption in that particular object, which is non-material, non-temporal, you will experience a permanent, incremental expansion of your consciousness. And so in meditation, there are various techniques. First of all, starting with focusing your mind on one point. How hard is that, to focus your mind on one point? It's difficult. Even in the ancient Bhagavad Gita, 5,000 years old, the teacher, Krishna, is speaking to his student, Arjuna, and in the 6th chapter, which is called Dhyan Yoga, which is all about meditation, the student says, this seems impossible. Controlling the mind, he says, seems to be about as easy as controlling the wind. And the mind's very stubborn. It's mad, as in crazy. It's also strong. So what should I do? And the teacher recommends by correct process, and then he says, and by detachment also. Over time, you can actually still the mind, and he describes it much like taming a horse. Over time, you make friends with the horse, and then it becomes your friend. So then, what are the other ways of meditation? Besides sitting in one place, best, as recommended in the ancient literatures, is to go to the forest and just stay there permanently and live off roots and, make yourself an asana and just live on bare necessities and just focus all day long on one point. Very difficult in this age. There are various environments in the various eras, and each one of them has a prescribed method which is most beneficial for meditation. In the present era, which is called Kali, there are many descriptions of Kali that you can probably identify with, but one of them comes in a verse that says, Prayanal Paisha Shabya Kalvasmin Yugejana, Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hipadrita. And that is a very distracted time. And people come up with a lot of crazy ideas. Manda Sumanda Matayo means people have wild and crazy ideas about the way the world works, or what should be happening and so forth. In general, it's a very hard time for concentration. However, there is a particular prescription given that through mantra meditation, one can very effectively bring one's awareness first to the mantra itself, and then by experiencing the vibration of the mantra, there's a resonance with the higher self that I've been describing. The higher self, in Sanskrit, yourself, you, who you really are, is called Atma, self. that's your permanent self, beyond the temporary designation of this particular body we're in now. And of course, as described in many of the wisdom literatures, we're on a continuum. The body, the life you have right now is just one frame in a long film. Remember in the old days when there used to be films? Remember the movies? And there were little frames inside. So most of you have never heard of this because you're too young. But it was the movies, they're on a long film and there's like little frames in each one of them. And this lifetime is one frame, one tiny frame in a long spool. So we're moving from one circumstance to another. And in each one, as the Atma, when we appear in a particular frame, we take this context as the all in all. Oh, this is the whole thing. It's only one frame, which goes along with the understanding of karma, reincarnation, and so forth, that when we move from this particular physical body, we take our subtle or psychological body with us to the next physical frame and body that we attain. And of course, that's another class. And we've talked a lot about that from the Yoga Sutras and others, how that actually happens. There's a technology behind it, just as there's a technology behind the way you switch smartphones. And it's not a big deal. So don't think it's a huge deal. And this is not some new revelation. Of course, maybe that's redundant. This is not a revelation. This has been known for millennia. This knowledge is available. So when you change iPhones, you don't lament for the old iPhone. Or sorry, what's that other one called? The Android or something.
BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. Okay, whatever it is, you just move the software from one to the next, and all your apps and everything else go with it. So same thing, when we change from this one physical body, we go from one to the next. So in mantra meditation, we are employing mantra, which is, of course, literally it means man means the mind, and tra means to deliver. So how is it in this age when you can't go to the forest and sit for, years and years and meditate in one place? What is the most efficient way to bring the mind to a serene enough state so that you can see beyond the mind and experience your self and experience what I described as ascharyavat, the amazingness of your existence. So the ancient writings described that it's mantra. Iti murtya bidanena mantra murtim amurtikam yajite yagya purusham sasam yag darshana puman. From an ancient Sanskrit writing called the Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes how the word in Sanskrit, murti means form, and it also means difficulty. So amurti means not difficult to meditate if you use the mantra. Iti mantrena means that use the mantra, and then the awareness of your higher self will become readily available. So there are many other citations, but highly recommended in the Yoga Sutras. Patanjali also, he uses the mantra as the object of meditation. And that mantra we've chanted here before is Om. It's spelled A-U-M, but through Sandhi, or the way that vowels are formed and that they morph in Sanskrit, it's pronounced as Om. Most people write it O-M. So the mantra then is something you can take with you wherever you go. And you can use it to start your meditation. When you vibrate the mantra using your vocal cords just so that you can hear it. For instance, if I'm sitting here and I do the mantra meditation, I'll be saying it loud enough so that somebody outside my room won't be hearing it. But if they walked in and they walked close to me, they could hear that I'm repeating a mantra. And so this is mantra. And then as I'm repeating the mantra, I'm bringing my mind, and this is the way it's described. Put the mantra in your mind and then put your mind in the mantra. So you get this. So the mantra gives you that help. It's like a hand coming saying, okay, I've got you here. I'm going to help you up. So put your mind in the mantra and put the mantra in your mind, or put the mantra in your mind and your mind in the mantra, so that they become fused. And then you'll find that the mantra has its own power. It's bringing a higher energy. And it intrinsically has the spiritual power to reveal your higher self. So this is the theory behind mantra, and that is to be tested by those who do it. So the kind of meditation I just described, mantra meditation, where, for instance, I would sit here, I would put a do not disturb sign on my door, which I have when I need it. I would turn off everything. If you have electronics that you're attracted to, turn them off. There's a little device you can buy online now. It's called a kitchen safe, through which you can put items in and then turn the dial and lock it for a certain amount of time. Be careful how far you turn the dial, because it doesn't open again. But my point is, clear a space for yourself. So you just have this exclusive time to experiment with your own consciousness, to try to get one drop of that nectar that's described in the poem that I read at the very beginning. Then use the mantra. Because you feel like I'm all by myself with my mind, and my mind's a bully. My mind, says, listen, what are you doing? You're stupid. Get up, break that kitchen safe open and take the phone out and find out what's going on with the election, or whatever it may be. Your mind will bring up some point, and then it's very difficult to overcome. So you have to take measures to practice meditation, and to incrementally, it doesn't have to be so brutal that you're tortured, but incrementally try to find advancement in disciplining yourself to stay in one place and listen carefully to the mantra, even if it's for 5 minutes, and try to get a little taste of that nectar. So then, if I do this privately, it's called Japa. Japa, Japa. So Japa is an age-old system of meditation. It goes on in many different places. In Europe, it's done on rosary. I've seen in Asia. I lived in Japan for some time, and that there, in the Buddhist and monasteries, they use mantra and japa. Sit quietly, say the mantra, repeat it. In India, very popular. All over the world, there's a system of japa, and then the mantra. So privately, for yourself, it's called japa. And then the mantra is also used in what's called kirtan, Kirtan, kirtan. And in the kirtan, there's a way to actually loudly repeat the mantra in the form of song. And in kirtan, oftentimes the power of music. Somebody sent me this book recently. Has anybody ever seen this? Can you see the title, or is it backwards? This is your brain on music. I'm only partway through, but the idea here, the theories, it's a scientific approach. And I did a lot of my own research recently in the book that I'm writing about the power of music. Actually, let's look at a few of those slides. Well, we still have the opportunity. There's a way in which sound in and of itself, we can go beyond this one for now. Let's just go to a couple of, I just put tiny little excerpts from some of the scientific research on sound. Is this the first one? Science Daily, do cells recognize sound? Yeah, next one. Kyoto University, audible sound stimulation leads to specific genetic responses. There's a lot in that study, which we couldn't include on one slide, but the point of it was that actually in controlled studies, noticing what happens on a genetic level with certain kinds of sound is notable. Then also in healing, the Journal of Burn and Care Research, and there are lots of other kind of medical reports about how music may be useful in medical care because it affects us on a visceral level, not just mentally, but also it affects our physiology as well. Chronic environmental noise. So chronic environmental noise has a measurable effect on people and animals. You can come back to the gallery, but there's a study with birds was notable. I actually heard this on NPR some years ago, in which I think it was Terry Gross, but it was about a study with birds and how they, when exposed to low-level traffic noise in a controlled environment, they noticed their population noticeably was affected. Appetite went down, reproductive activity went down. Who could measure the psychology of a bird, but they weren't happy about it. And that was low level. So sound, noise, there's lots to say about it. It's a subtle element that affects us. And in music, back to the music, in music, there are chords that affect us emotionally. It's evocative. It brings out various moods within our heart. In fact, in Indian music, there's what's called raga. And there are scales which are specifically designed to evoke a particular emotion. And they correspond to various dramas that are very important for elevating the human spirit. So music goes along with culture in so many ways. And you can identify a culture by its music oftentimes. What to speak of the fact that it has a marked effect on us, and the kind of music we listen to will affect us in a particular way. Having said that, when you mix mantra with music or raga, or a definite way in which it is opening the heart channel, like poetry, definitely, you'll notice it. You hear poetry that is subtle and profound, and you'll notice that the heart just opens, and you have a kind of direct experience when you hear good poetry that connects you with, well, it connects you, it opens you to a particular emotion. Music is like that too, isn't it? And so music and mantra together, along with rhythm, the universal language that even animals appreciate, or I should say, animals especially appreciate. There's a way in which you mix the two together and you get a especially potent brew. And this is called kirtan. So you'll find the ancients, the yogis, sages and so forth, they would gather in a specific place deliberately to create this raga music, evocative music, and then they infuse it with the mantra. And now you get this effect, a group effect. It's like a group meditation. So you're doing the music and the mantra, and you're already carried away by that experience. What a foundation for the meditation. And then the mantra goes in even deeper because your heart is opening. And you get this effect where you're feeling the group awareness of your higher self. And this is called kirtan. And it's actually an ancient method. And as I referred to Chaitanya previously, he highly recommended this kind of meditation. And he would go, as I said, village to village, barefoot as a monk, and he would teach each one of the villages how to come together and do this kind of kirtan. I think we need it in the world right now. Just a proposition. I mean, we should all get together and have kirtan and and kind of have a little healing, a little world healing. And this is the medicine of mantra, the medicine of mantra. You know, it's a again, back to med, take appropriate measures to heal, to bring yourself back into alignment and so forth. And this comes through this ancient system of both japa, which you can decide to do at any time yourself, or if you organize, get a few people together with the music and the mantra combined, then what you've got is a complete practice, actually. And all other kinds of concomitant and beneficial byproducts emerge from this practice of both japa and kirtan together. So these are practical. They are ways to integrate a spiritual practice into your life that is both real and is what is called in the Bhagavad Gita, pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. Pratyaksha means to experience it for yourself. What good is a spiritual system that you can't see for yourself? If it remains philosophical, it won't satisfy ultimately. We need that direct taste of the nectar. So I've been talking for a long time. Let's just see if there's any reflections from some of the material I've put out there so far. Anything that you want to comment on, or anything that struck you, or if you have a question that you think will help expand things.
Rihanna has a question. What type of music or sound is kirtan?
Well, there are different tunes. Some of them, according to the science of raga, there are tunes for the various times of day. Like in the mantra that I imbibed, or that I received from my teacher, which I'll show you in a few minutes. Most of you know it already, but there are several mantras. One of them is called the Maha Mantra. And in this, well, you can show it now, because then I'll sing one of the ragas that goes with it. It's a simple tune. And I'm not a trained singer, so you'll have to bear with me, but I'm just going to give you a sample of it and be vulnerable here. But the Maha Mantra, the Maha Mantra is a combination of names of the ultimate reality. So Rama means one who gives bliss. Hara is female energy, the bliss energy of the original conscious source, Krishna, which actually means attraction to reality, the beautiful. Reality is that object that we never grow tired of seeing or hearing. It attracts everything, every fiber in our being. So that's infused in the mantra, and it looks like this. Can you show that? So there's a view of it written phonetically. It's a Sanskrit mantra. It appears in various ancient writings like the Kali Santaranu Upanishad, where it's described iti sodashakam nanyam kali kalmashanashanam, and it gives the mantra in its entirety. So this mantra has been exported in many places. And so, as an example of a tune, okay, I will just sing what would be a morning tune. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's a particular tune that goes with the morning. And then there are other tunes that are, that go with the evening. And actually, ultimately, with this mantra, there's no hard and fast rule. You don't have to know raga. You don't have to match it particularly. It's kind of nice if you do. But there are many other tunes that you can sing the mantra to that, let me just see. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just a sample. So if you could imagine that along with percussion and musicians playing, and then in the background, and then several people or several hundred people at the same time doing the mantra as a call and response, then this is what's called kirtan. It's very popular all over the world, actually. And this kind of meditation is extremely absorbing. And you can go on literally for hours because it is so satisfying. No one starts to, the mind is really swept away by the power of the rhythm, music, and the mantra. And it's very purifying. So it's a very preferred type of meditation if you ever like going to concerts and you like music and things like that. If you add meditation to it through putting in the mantra, it's a favorable kind of combination. Let's see what else.
Yeah, Sheila has a reflection. Sheila, do you want to share that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I used to live in an apartment really close to a busy road, and I would just kind of drown it out. And I recently moved into like the foothills area where I can't hear the cars anymore. And I didn't realize how the silence was healing for me. And that kept coming up when you were talking about sound. And for me, it was the absence of sound that has brought me some healing and peace. And I also think about in my Navajo culture, how when ceremonies are done, there's a lot of repetition of sounds and the four directions that we pray in, and it's repetition. And when you're doing the chanting and the mantras, I'm like, it always resonates with me that is healing. And I run, and when I run, I listen to Navajo songs because it helps keep me on my pace, and it also helps me kind of connect with my higher power, the creator, how I see the universe. So that was coming up for me. And I also want to share one last thing, sorry. I have a 17-year-old son, he's a musician, and he's had a kind of a rough life, but he's found healing in music that I would never listen to. And there's death growling, it's called, in heavy metal. And it drives me crazy when he does that, but I realize like it's letting him get all the hurt and pain out that he needs to get out. And I'm glad that I recognize that and not tell him to be quiet. I tell him, can you just go in your room and do that? Because he needs that. So he's healing by letting these sounds out of him. So I just wanted to share that with you. And sorry, it took
Wow,
so
a
long
lot
to
of
share.
really good points, Sheila. Thank you very much. I love the parallel with the Navajo culture of singing and repetition and so forth, and find that in a lot of cultures. There's that, of course, celebration of music and so forth, but so much of the spiritual tradition comes out in music, and especially when it's very deliberate, and there's a culture that is deliberately connected to the vibrations of either the earth or from the spiritual stratum, beyond, by invoking mantras of the Great Spirit or the way that we connect to what's beyond through sound. In fact, that's the entire tradition of the yogic tradition. It's called Shruti. And the main means of connection is through the sound vibration. The sound makes its avatar or descent from a higher level into a lower level, and the human spirit gets that connection to it, and in a very practical way. Yeah, and I like that. It's almost therapeutic in a way, expressing through sound and music and identification with various kinds of music, like your son does. Very interesting. I saw Subhadra, you were nodding when she was talking about that. Did you have any reflection on her reflection?
Yeah, I always get really affected by music. It's just as a stupid example, when I was a teenager, I listened to the Beatles a lot, and it was so emotional that now I can't even listen to the Beatles, because when I do, I get really emotional. And as a further reflection on the subject, I was thinking about how you said the mind is reflective and it's a repository. So it seems to me that we like maybe need to be really careful about what our mind is exposed to in the world and in our lives, because then when we go to try and meditate, the ripples are going to be going crazy if we've exposed ourselves to a lot of stuff.
Very true. And in fact, in the Yoga Sutra, it's mentioned that yogis who are particularly aware of how sensitive their mind is, the description is they're as sensitive as an eyeball. And so what does that mean? Well, how sensitive is your eyeball compared to other parts of your body? It's so sensitive, you put a tiny little hair on your eye, your eye will feel agitated. So similarly, yogis know that whatever I'm putting in now, it will come back out later. It repeats on me. So they're very careful about what they put in. Fortunately, there's a process of overwriting a lot of the various kinds of noise that goes in. And that's where kirtan is very powerful, because rather than avoiding everything, which is impossible to do nowadays, although we can be careful and selective, by putting in meditative sound, transcendental sound, or mantra, then it tends to overwrite the lower sounds or the noise. Actually, the word noise comes from a word that refers to seasickness. The sound that actually makes you sick. And then there's a meditative sound, again, from the med or medicine, medicinal sound, which cures you. So the science of sound is very important. Yes.
We have a couple of more reflection, I guess, from Jean and
Yeah, let's hear from Jean.
Yeah. Jean, do you want to speak say, or should I just read? So what she says is, repetitive noise really bothers me, like a car blinker. I value silence very much. Being in nature and listening to the quiet abundance in nature is very soothing. And Markario, I think, agrees with it. Silence is beautiful.
Yeah, so important. And then what the yoga literatures describe, this kind of retreat to a more natural environment and the sounds that are ambient there is sattva. We had a session on living in sattva. Sattva is the highest modality or energetic transformation of nature, which provides illumination. And it's very conducive for meditation. That's why I mentioned earlier that yogis tend to go to the forest to meditate, because when you go there, the absence of mechanical sounds and just that sort of serene, ambient, natural sound is sattva. And sattva helps clear the mind so that you can actually experience your higher self. And even if you don't meditate, as you're all saying, you go there and you just naturally feel like, I feel better. In Japan, they call it forest bathing. And you just go walk through the forest and you come out, it's like, okay, that was like going through a car wash. And so much of it has to do with the sound or lack thereof from mechanical devices and so forth. What else, JM?
I feel like that happened to me last week.
Yes, please.
I went to the Multnomah Falls last week, and I was planning to go on a hike, and I was all disappointed because the trails were closed. But then I just went to listen to the waterfall, and it was just like, it was so therapeutic.
Yeah.
I just sat there for like a half an hour just meditating and listening to this thing, and it was just like the stress just like bled out of me. It was beautiful.
I could really relate to that. There's a place up in Mendocino County that my wife and I go every year for a retreat, and there's a little waterfall that we go and just sit there, and it's amazing the sound of water on the waterfall, how it heals you, doesn't it? Isn't it? Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Really powerful.
Anna has a similar reflection. My husband suffers from tinnitus.
Tinnitus.
Sorry. He says it's like having a plane turbine about 5 meters far. He really appreciates the silence from other noises.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I have a touch of it myself. I don't know if it's from traveling so much or what, but it used to drive me really crazy. And I can relate to appreciating silence.
Sapna has a question. What's your opinion about meditation using theta waves?
As in biofeedback?
Sapna, do you want to clarify?
Okay, bye, Angie. Okay, thanks, Sheila. Yes, I'm not sure exactly what she means, but I know I did study a little bit about biofeedback. I took a class at San Francisco State University called Psychosomatic Optimization in the psychology department. And, you know, they talked a lot about the efficacy of biofeedback and getting in touch with the way that your mind is wired up to your emotions and your body and so forth. Well, JM, we've come to the end of the time by over 2 minutes. And let's just end with a little bit of a mantra. So we go away on a meditative level. So the first mantra that I'll bring to your attention, for those of you who can stay on for about 2 more minutes, is Nitai Gauranga. And this mantra, I recommend that you chant in Japa or through kirtan when you do your meditation before you do the Maha Mantra, which is the next one. So let's try this. And I will say the mantra 5 times. And then behind closed mics, you can repeat if you wish. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. And the next mantra is called the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you can go to Spiritual Fitness. There's a connection there. If you want to integrate some mantra meditation into your daily practice, Jan will just give a link or show us really quick what it looks like. And I recommend it because it gives you a little bit, some parameters you could start your own spiritual practice. This website, vaisheshikadas.com has, go ahead, JM.
I'm pasting the URL. So we have I'm just pasting the URL. we have the November Spiritual Fitness Challenge open. So Spiritual Fitness is a list of activities which you can follow on a daily basis to help improve body, mind, and spirit. So the activities itself for each of the section, if you go to the URL which I pasted, is described here: body, certain activities, mind again, and then for spirit. And based on the description, you can participate using a online tracker, which once you click on submit progress online, you can see, you can enter your email address, and for each of those activity, for example, if you perform on a given day, you can select it that this was completed for each of those activities, and you can then submit it. Once you submit, you'll receive an email which you can use to then resubmit based on the email link that you receive. Those who have been participating so far, today I sent out an email to all of them, so you should have already received an email link if you had previously participated, and you can use that to participate in the November challenge, or if not, you can join now, so that at least for November you can participate. Anything more you would like to add as well?
Yeah, it's great. Try it. It's helpful, of course, in any discipline to have some parameters to follow and a way to keep score. What gets measured gets done, and it's the same in spiritual practice as well. It's called Sankhya Purvaka, which means numerical strength. And if you have a way to record it every day and sort of measure how you're doing, then it gives you an advantage over your mind, which is called chanchal. The mind wants to do whatever it wants to do, and it's always changing. So if you stay steady in your spiritual practice, you'll notice advancement. And advancement is noticed when, just like when you eat food, and when you're hungry and you know for yourself, you don't need a certificate from an oversight committee that tells you now you're getting full. You already know, oh, this meal is good. And you know, my stomach is now it's getting full, and I also feel nourishment and satisfaction. So in the same way, when you do the spiritual fitness practices to the best of your ability, the more regularly you do them by following the program, you'll start to notice a kind of buoyancy that you didn't have before, or more than you had before. And you'll have direct perception of this nectar that I talked about in the beginning, that you taste something that gives you a higher perspective, and it begins to pervade the different parts of your life. So I recommend it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's been an unmitigated pleasure being with you for a little more than an hour. Thanks for hanging in there, and look forward to seeing you next week so we can continue the topics. And if any of you want to check in about the spiritual fitness next week, that would be great. Just any of your experiences and so forth. And hey, thanks, Jean. Thanks, Tulsi. Thanks, SN, everybody. Eva, really great to have you. And thank you, JM, for putting everything together and making sure everything technical worked. Did you have an assistant today?
Yeah, Shweka helped me out. Thank you, Shweka.
Shweka, you're the best. Thank you very much. Always there and helping. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay. Keep the transcendental vibration going, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, Mark.